Un, dos, tres. Okay. That should work. Hi everyone. I don't know if anyone's here yet or if I'm starting this too early. Probably I'm starting this too early. But I'm kind of hoping that you can hear me. My audio levels are going up when I speak, so I'm going to presume that you people can hear me. YouTube, please leave me alone. Yeah, so I don't see any of you in the chat, so if I'm alone doing this, at least you'll have a very nice 1 hour recording of me painting live. So yeah, let's go for it. Well, if you don't know me, that is odd. I don't know what you're doing here, but I am Alba Klashnikov. I am a painter, artist, marketing person. I don't know, I do a bunch of stuff. And today we are here to paint surrealist pomegranates and talk about politics and the latest developments in the UK when it comes to LGBTQ plus rights and symbolism, because why not. Anyway, if anyone's here, please let me know if you can hear me. I'm going to start. I have my, I don't know how much of you, if you can see around here, that is my iPad. I took a couple of reference pictures last night. That is a meme, not a reference picture. So I'm gonna be using those as kind of a guide. Yeah. So I'm gonna talk to you through kind of my process, if such a word can be used. So what I do usually is when I'm working in such kind of small paintings, I'm a terrible example, but I don't usually bother with priming. If I'm working, especially because I'm painting a la prima, and even though actually a la prima canvases is a really good idea. Hi, hola duende. I'm from Spain, in case you couldn't tell, with my heavy accent. So yeah, it's a really good idea to prime your canvases when you're painting a la prima. If you don't know, painting a la prima means that you're painting all in one go and on top wet on wet. So you're not painting in several sessions, you're just kind of sitting down and doing it all in one go, which is what we're aiming for today. So yeah, I don't usually prime my canvases because I'm lazy. So yeah, what I usually will start doing is I will start sketching on the canvas what I want to do. I'll usually work with reference pictures. Prior to this sketch, I have to say, I always sketch my ideas out on my notepad beforehand, so that way I know what kind of reference pictures I need, etc. And the kind of sketch that I do, I'm going to be fixing this with Dutch varnish, which is varnish, sorry, which is the medium I use to thin down my oils. Sometimes I use a cobalt dryer. I think I'm using that today. I premixed it, so I'm not really certain. Hi Matt, how you doing? Happy birthday to you both, by the way, to both Helena and Matt. Very happy birthday. I feel like you're my two kind of calmest and chillest friends, and I find it very funny that it's your birthday today at the same time, so there you go. So yeah, as I was saying, I will often use a cobalt secative, especially if I'm doing a la prima, just to help me a little bit. The only thing with the cobalt secative is that it can make the oil misbehave a little. Sometimes it makes, when you mix the cobalt with the Dutch varnish, it makes it, the oil gets thicker, because the cobalt is trying to dry it and the Dutch varnish is trying to make it less dense. So they kind of fight a little bit, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the LGBTQ news. And yeah, in case you didn't know, I think it was about a month ago, the whole committee of the LGBTQ advisory board resigned because they claimed that essentially that the environment was too hostile and like they couldn't do their job properly. I'm talking about the UK, by the way, in case you hadn't caught up. So yeah, they resigned en masse, and then a pretty big and it was a pretty big red flag. So what the government has decided to do, apparently, instead of I don't know, try and write a report, although we know how, what beautiful reports have been coming out of the UK government lately, don't we? Or anything. They said, you know what? Yeah, we're not in the mood for this. How about we simply get rid of the fucking commission, and then maybe like the gays will leave us alone. So yeah, that's what happened earlier this week, which of course we are all very happy about, especially if we keep in mind that Liz Truss is a thing, that the UK has been rolling back trans rights. Rolling back trans rights, it's not like trans people had a lot of rights before that, but they've been rolling them back lately. And the fact that such a thing as the policing bill has passed and it's now on one of the faces of reading, is happening at the same time that not only we're getting a lot of scandals regarding like Priti Patel's concentration camps, the barracks in which we are holding the asylum seekers and stuff, Brexit and a bunch of other like really interesting stuff. I think we have, when we look at news and when we read the news and when we reflect on the things that are happening, I think we have to be very careful and almost like very particular, because if you introduce something such as a new policing bill, which essentially says things such as if a protest is causing any kind of like disturbance to the neighborhood, then people will be liable and you will be able to arrest and charge people for protesting, which maybe this is news to you, I don't think it is, but protesting is essentially causing a disruption in an area so that people will hear you out and people will understand the problem that you're having. So, creating a bill that essentially removes the ability to do that is kind of like literally condemning protests. So that is, and then, I don't know if you know, but a lot of LGBTQ activism is very, very tied to protests and to civic unrest. The Pride, as we know it today, started as a riot mainly organized by sex workers of color. And, comments from people such as Boris Johnson saying that in order to make women feel safer, he wants to put policemen in plain clothes inside of bars, when raiding bars has been, like gay bars in particular, has been one of the ways that LGBTQ plus people have been criminalized throughout history. So, not great. As like a combination of things, I have to say, not ideal. Especially, like I said, when we're living in the middle of a human rights crisis, is what it is. And, with COVID and whatnot, and I might start referring to COVID as the plague during the duration of this video, by the way. With COVID and whatnot, the kind of powers that have been given to the police and the levels of monitoring the population that we're living through are quite unprecedented. It's, not great. And I know that this all sounds kind of conspiranoid, is that how you say that in English? So, but I'm not saying that COVID is not real. COVID is very real. Please get your vaccines and, wear your masks and shit. But we've been giving a lot of power to the police to be able to deal with this situation. And that is not great. That is not a wonderful way to go about things, in my opinion. And I think we should be quite worried that at the same time that we've passed a new policing bill, We've spent a year giving wider powers to the police in order to be able to curb the spread of the virus, and at the same time we have just essentially published a report that says that institutional racism not a thing, not in Britain, how dare you, and we've disbanded the LGBTQ plus commission, advisory board, however they call. Not great. So, I just wanted to kind of like bring attention to this because first of all, I don't think you can really speak about art without taking on board issues. These are things that I think, worry me and sit at the heart of my practice and blah, blah, blah. But more so, like, we need to be talking about these things. We need to be conscious of the things that are happening. And I sometimes I feel that when we talk about these things, there is a general assumption that since the normality is not gay, the normality is not queer, the normality is not trans, those are kind of like side issues, minority issues. But the fact is that I'm queer. More likely than not, a sex worker, a trans person, or a person of color. Like, these people, and if you don't know them, you are them. So we have to be aware of these issues. These are not side issues. These are not minorities issues. These are at the forefront of our lives. So, here we are, centering the important stuff. So, yeah, going back to the actual painting and shit, what I'm going to do now that I have this, please appreciate the beauty of this sketch. Since this is like an a la prima painting, I can't be asked, to be quite honest, to produce like a very complex sketch because it's not worth it. I'm going to be painting over it and I'm going to be moving very quickly. So yeah, no, not going to do that. What I'm going to do now though is I'm thinking of getting like a third camera maybe, kind of like pointing at the palette. I wish you could see it now, it's so dirty. Yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm wetting my brush in the... dipping it in the Dutch varnish and cobalt dryer mixture, and what I'm doing here is I'm simply very quickly going over the pencil lines. There are a number of ways that you can start an oil painting. This is a way that I was taught. I don't think it's the best way, and I really want to start no, don't you... Sorry, the iPad keeps trying to turn off. I would like to experiment with other ways to kind of like transfer this sketch. This is easy for me because it's what I know and because I don't really transfer whether it's primed or not. So this is like convenient, I would say, but I don't think it's like the best way. I could have, for example, if I was a more intelligent maybe artist, instead of using like a very dark black pencil, I could have used watercolor pencil, which they really work well for this kind of application too. My teacher used to do this with like what's the name? Kohl pen, like crayons and kohl pencils and like dry pastels. Yeah, he used to do that a lot. I'm not a big fan because there's a lot of fallout and I don't want that in my life or in my living room, which is where I'm painting. So yeah, we're not doing that. But yeah, that's another option that you have. Yay! That's it, Matt. That is the thing. That's the fight. I think Matt raises a really good point, which is a happy society can protest, but chooses not to because they have nothing to protest about. I think that's really important. Like the idea that even if we were at a point in society where everything was perfect, we still would have the right to protest. That for me, like civil unrest and protest are at the heart of democracy, the ability to express your concerns and the ability to express your disgust, your discomfort, your dislike of what's happening, or simply your disagreement. I think that's really important. So yeah, spot on, Matt, as always. So yeah, that's essentially it. I don't know what I was saying before this. Something about how I like doing this transfer, like prepping my canvas this way. By the way, if you didn't catch on because you don't buy a lot of art supplies, this is a cheap AF canvas from Tiger. And whether you're like starting out or you just need some cheap art supplies, don't buy their paints. The paints are like shit. But canvas wise, if I had primed this would be like a really good canvas. It's not really good, it's perfect tension and the quality of the canvas is astounding. No, but if if you don't want to spend a shitload of money on canvases, Tiger is really nice in that regard. And I am not aware that they engage in any kind of like terrible practice with their employees. Maybe they are. Let me know in the comments if it's like that, because I try and not support shitty businesses. So, oh no, yeah, there we go. I'm going to start with I can either start with the skin or the pomegranate. By the way, since I wasn't going to eat the pomegranate yesterday, I didn't open it, and I wish I had, because now I'm gonna have to Google the inside of a pomegranate. Although I think that with the amount of pomegranates that I've painted, especially lately, I know what a pomegranate looks like, but referencing is always a good idea. So I'm going to start, I think this is an ochre, some kind of ochre. I'm sorry, I have to translate from like Spanish to English, and then my memory is not great. So yeah, cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with some ochre mixed with I think that's cadmium red, and I'm going to kind of like you know when you put on makeup and you try and hide all the redness? Yeah, we're doing the opposite here. You're kind of like trying to make sure that all your redness is shining through, kind of like just to warm up the canvas a little bit. As you can see, fuck, this is a very tiny space and I can't move. I'm trying to essentially cover the white a little bit with, this is a very old brush, but it's shitty brush at that, but I love it. So yeah, that's what we're doing right now. And since we are painting a la prima, very important, I think. Of course, this depends on your technique. If you're doing something like very expressionist, you don't need to do this. But since I like to go for more of a, I'm not gonna say academicist, because not anything, like nothing here is really academicist. But I like to go for a more realistic kind of like approach. So what I do is I try and keep my layers pretty thin. So as you can see, this is like a very thinned out layer. So yeah, that's what we're doing. Just applying some paint where I want things to be red. Also a little bit where I want the red to be reflected. I'm mainly guiding myself with the reference picture that I have, but I will, it's art. You can introduce your own interpretation of the facts. So yeah. And what I'm gonna do now is I'm going to grab some of my ultramarine blue. I'm gonna put it aside, and I'm going to add some of my, I want to think that this is some kind of burgundy. It is some kind of burgundy. I would like to think that this is some kind of burgundy. Oh, yeah, words, talking. Essentially what I'm going to be doing is a deep burgundy with blue, so I can start working on the shadows. You can also directly use blue or something more gray. In this case, I'm trying to, since what's going to be the background is going to be blue, because it's going to be the sky, because we're doing surrealism, because why not? I will be adding more blue into the shadows later, but right now I want to give myself a pretty, like, intense reddish kind of like situation here, which is ridiculous because before I started recording this morning, I think I spent 10 minutes correcting all the red spots in my face. So yeah, there you go, art. Yeah. I have to say that ever since I started doing more self-portraiture, I kind of like give less of a fuck about my imperfections. I mean, don't get me wrong, during the whole fucking pandemic, I think I maybe have put on makeup less than 30 times, which is a shame. It's why I reorganized my makeup drawer the other day, because I couldn't handle the lack of artistry on my face. Um, but yeah, I think that actually doing self portraits, if you're a woman or a man worried about your appearance, which is a thing too, uh, it's great because you learn to appreciate a lot of things, a lot of things, such as like not only your red spots, or for example, whenever I do live drawing classes with nude models who are as fat or fatter than me, that gives me life, because if I can like paint that and see how beautiful that is on someone else, why can't I do that with myself, you know? So yeah, if you have like body um, image issues, which I mean, this is 2020, who doesn't? I wholeheartedly recommend that you do self portraits, whether it's, you know, taking a selfie, that is self portrait too, or just straight ahead take some nude drawing or painting classes. Really good investment. Um, Nice, paint by numbers. I love paint by numbers. Paint by numbers is, in my opinion, one of the most relaxing things that you can do. For me, paint by numbers is a little bit like playing music with a music sheet in front, because you can't go wrong. They're telling you what you have to do. So it's really really relaxing. Okay, what I'm gonna do now is I need to start introducing some gray tones to this, because like this is so red, very very red. I need to start introducing some gray tones. Matt has asked what advice would I give to people who want to art but are nervous to start because we have no confidence in our ability. I have no confidence in my ability. I think that's something that you kind of like need to come to terms with, is that this is very kind of like self-help book advice, okay? So, you know, don't come at me, but maybe we will never feel quite confident in our ability to do things. There is a good chance that art, I find, is a very very challenging thing, because a little bit like music, since there are no rules. Well, there are rules, but you know, there is no one that can tell you you're doing this right or you're doing this wrong. So how can you know? You know, like something that has always made me like stupid nervous about making art was knowing that no one at any point of my career was actually going to be able to tell me I was good at art or bad at art. Well, a lot of people have told me that I'm bad at art and that I need to do things differently and whatnot. People are little shits. They will tell you that. But the truth is that no matter how much people or you or yourself like or dislike your art, that is no guarantee that you're doing it wrong or right. So I think that the first thing that you kind of like have to do if you want to do art and you're like really really nervous about, oh my god, I don't know where to start, I don't know what to do, I'm like, it's going to be shit, I'm going to be terrible at this, I have no artistic ability, I am not like I've not been trained for this, you know, stress. This I don't know if this is good advice or not. Just let it go. Like, do the art, do the thing, and worry about your results later. I think this is especially true for the first few months or the first few years, or like the first moments. Focus on the process, not on the results. So maybe you don't show your art to anyone. Like you don't have to have an Instagram account, you don't have to show the pictures that you paint or the art that you create. I think showing it is great. At least it makes me feel better about a lot of things. But you don't have to. That is not something that you need to do. If you would feel, or if you have the feeling that if you didn't show your art, that would enable you to paint more, or I'm talking about painting because I paint, but to do the art more, do the art. Do that. Don't feel like in order to be an artist you have to kind of like show off your results. You can be an artist in secret. I think that at some point you should share your art and you should be proud of it. But I'm also like painfully aware that that is a very hard thing to do. Putting out what you do, which is such an intimate thing, really, to put out to the world, to put that out, to expose yourself and your art to the world and be like, this is me, love me or hate me, I don't care. I think that is extremely brave. And not because I do that, because all artists like do that, really. But I don't think that needs to be necessarily your first step. Showing your art to people doesn't have to be the first thing that you do. Showing your art to people doesn't have to be even like the fifth thing that you do. Dude, just take your time and focus on the process. Maybe your art journey looks like doing a coloring or like doodling. I think that doodling helps a lot of people because it's literally super relaxed. Like you doodle and who the fuck cares? I hate doodling myself. Not that I hate people who doodle. I hate doing it myself because I'm an academicist ass. I like realism. I like punishing myself. I don't think that should be what you do. Just so you have some background. But like I said, maybe your art journey doesn't look like paint by numbers. I think it's a great choice for a starting artist because you have someone hand holding you and you have a decent end result. And another thing that I think you need to get comfortable with art is that maybe things don't look like the way you want them to look or the way that you had envisioned them to look, especially in the beginning. There is a process to art, and I don't know, maybe this is like a good moment in the painting actually to talk about this. Can you see this absolutely hot mess? Like this is a hot mess. This is not finished. This is not what it's going to look like, and a lot. And I think, Matt, this might be especially useful to you because I don't know if you know, but Matt is like the most amazing sound engineer in the world. So I think it's kind of like akin to building sound or to any kind of like art project. For a really long time, whatever you're doing, it's gonna look really, really, really ugly. And then at a certain point, thank God, it will stop looking ugly and it will start making some kind of sense. So, I'm hoping to get this painting to where it makes sense today, so you can kind of like see the evolution. But you have to be able to sit comfortably with the fact that your art, no matter how good you are, for a certain period of that artwork's life, or creation, or inception, or however you want to call that, it's going to look very fucking ugly. It's going to make absolutely no sense. And since you're the artist, you're the one who's painting, this might even be the case even when the artwork is finished. And it happens to me a lot, that I cannot look at my artworks until I like 2 or 3 days after I finish them. Sometimes even months if I've spent like a really long time working on the thing, because God, not only they look freaking ugly, I've spent so much time working so up close that I don't see anymore. And I think this is probably similar to in Matt's case, in case, when you're listening to a track once and again and you do minor changes and you have to listen for those changes, blah, blah, blah. I think art is very similar in that regard, because you stop listening, you stop hearing, sorry, not listening, you stop seeing. You no longer have the ability to distinguish and to see the things like you would if you had just arrived at the artwork. So I think this is really a really good exercise once like museums are open again, would be to go sit in front of your favorite artwork and look for flaws. And I like spend a really long time doing that. And this sounds like a very silly exercise, but do that. Go sit in front of your favorite piece of art not only your favorite piece of art, but like a piece of art that you are like, yeah, if I could paint like this, or if I could create like this, I would be very happy about myself. Do that. Do that and see what you find. See what you discover. Maybe you discover like I was once looking at I think it was a Bogoro. I really like him, and I discovered that he's not great at hands. And this is true, for example, for Ingress as well. They have flaws. Like the artists that we love, they have flaws, but we don't see them because we're so in love with their ability to translate a particular concept to the canvas that we don't care. We don't care if their art is not perfect. We care that the art makes us kind of like feel things in a way. So yeah, that is my advice. Trust the process. Spend time with the process too. Like spend some time with your paintings. So try and give yourself time. This is something that I'm super guilty of because I am always doing 75 things at the same time. But if you give yourself the time to become an artist, you will become an artist because there is no secret to being an artist. It's just a matter of practice and trusting your instincts to be able to make the decisions that your art needs. So yeah, trust the process, spend time doing the kind of art that you want to make. It's not gonna look good. Like, I don't know who said this, but I love this saying, and it's everyone has, I don't know if it was 3 million or like 300,000 bad drawings inside, and you need to get them out. And this is super true. Like, good art and brilliant art and the kind of art that makes you feel like, oh my god, I could never, is just someone who's spent a really long time doing it. And a really long time doesn't necessarily mean they've spent 40 years, but they've spent the amount of hours required to master that particular type of drawing. So, like, yeah, spend time drawing. There is literally nothing, not going to art school, not like going to a particular class, nothing will substitute the importance of practice. Practice makes perfect. This is very true in life and very true in art. And oh, that needs more grade, I think, doesn't it? And yeah, you need to bide your time. So just learn to sit comfortably with the fact that your art will suck for some time. Learn to sit comfortable with the fact that if you have any kind of like self-image issues or self-esteem issues, you will think that your art sucks for an even longer amount of time, and it may well be that this is kind of like a self-love exercise for you, where you learn to appreciate what you can create. Just learn to sit comfortably with that and look for flaws in the people that in the art of people that you love. Look for those things that you're like, oh, sneaky, you didn't do this quite right, did you? Because I think that will give you the confidence to continue drawing. And surround yourself with people who will encourage you. I cannot highlight the importance of this enough. You need to surround yourself with friends and family who will see your artwork no matter what level you're at and be like, hell yeah, that's awesome, I like it. And you may be like, oh my god, but they're not being sincere. What's the point if they don't really like my art? Why would they need to say that? That is stupid, blah blah blah. But the thing is that what you need right now is not for someone to be like, oh, your art is shit, you need to do this, you need to do that. That is not what you need. You already are your own worst critic. What you need is some encouragement, really, not someone to bring you down. So yeah, fuck that. Just stick with the people who you can trust, and who will be kind to you, because that's what you need at this stage when you're starting out. You need encouragement and you need love, and think of it this way. When, I don't know if you have plants, I have a lot of plants, I love having plants. But if you had plants and one of them wasn't growing quite as fast as the rest, would you like sit like in front of that plant and yell at it? Probably not. Mainly because it's a plant, like it's not going to reply, it's not very satisfactory to yell at a plant, but also because what the fuck, that poor plant is doing the best that it can. And this is not to say that you have to be like immune to criticism, or that you need to not hear all the criticism, or that your art is going to be perfect and no one can tell you otherwise. No, this is not what this is about. This is about encouraging you to make mistakes. What medium would I? Oh my god, I love these questions. Thank you, Matt. You're really making this stream. Teamwork makes the dream work. I'm trying to choose my next pen. What are we doing? Yeah, we're doing this. So what medium would you recommend to start with? I like oils, but they can be pretty expensive. So if you're worried about spending too much money when you're starting out, don't do oils, because they get pretty expensive, especially when you begin, because you need the medium, you need the solvent, you need all the brushes, and unfortunately oil painting brushes get pretty expensive. But I like them because oils hide all your mistakes. Oils are, for me, the closest thing to having like a control set button in real life. And that to a control freak like me, that is amazing. And you can layer so much with oils, which is really, really good, like I said, again, for control freaks like me. If you don't want to spend as much money, I think acrylics are a good kind of like next option. And they are slightly cheaper. So acrylics are a good option too. I don't like acrylics because they are not as plastic. You can't move them around as much as oils. I don't know if this is showing with the camera now, but I'm moving the paint that is underneath the layer that I'm painting now. I'm moving it. And that, to me, is a vital part of my practice. I need to be able to move the paint around, especially when I'm painting like a la prima. I need to be able to do that. If I can't do that, I'm very happy. Which is one of the reasons why I, no matter how many digital tools I have, no matter how much I use digital for painting, I always go back to oils. And it's just, yeah, I like them better. So you can't do that with acrylics, but again, they are less expensive. So not because sometimes it's not about like having money. Sometimes it's about this thing that we do where, I can't spend money on myself, which bullshit. You can spend all the money you want on yourself. Just, go for it. But I understand that, spending a lot of money on a hobby that you're just starting with, that you're not sure how you're going to like, that is pretty fucking scary. So I 100% understand if you don't want to spend like 70-80 pounds on like kit for like oil painting. So if you're gonna go the acrylic route, and say for example that I'm talking about oils and acrylics and not things such as watercolor, which people often really recommend for beginners. I fucking hate watercolors. This is not true. I paint in watercolors sometimes, okay? But watercolors, for, again, a control freak like me, they are such a fucking challenge because they don't obey me. The level of ability that you need to be able to control where the paint goes with watercolors, and to be able to sit comfortably with the fact that you cannot fully control watercolors, I find that absolutely, that is too much for me. I can't deal with that. Which is why I recommend more plastic tools or mediums to begin with. So yeah, I would say acrylics or oils, and also consider like something digital. If you have an iPad, Procreate is like 9, 13 quid, something like that. You need an Apple Pencil, but yeah, like really really good tool, and you will get a feel for watercolors, you will get a feel for oils, because it has a lot of tools and it's very intuitive to learn. So if you already have if you have the technology, that is a really good option. But yeah, I would say if you're a control freak like me, stay away from watercolors. If you can go with the flow, go for watercolors. But yeah, acrylics or oils would be my recommendation. And then has asked, what's the difference between the oil brushes and the rest of the brushes? You can paint with literally anything. Like this is kind of like the makeup brushes thing. You don't need a particular makeup brush or a brand to produce a particular effect. But the truth is that oils tend to work better in my experience, oil paints, with natural fibers, and natural fibers are more expensive. I tend to paint a lot with synthetic fibers because I am a cheap ass and I don't like spending money. So that's what I do. But yeah, acrylics, for example, it doesn't matter as much if you're, and this is so deeply dependent on your technique. So take everything that I'm saying now with a grain of salt, because it really depends on how you paint. So keep that in mind. But oil brushes, if you go for natural fibers, they're going to cost you more. And yeah, that's it really. For example, watercolor brushes. Watercolors work great with big fluffy brushes, but big fluffy brushes are hell expensive. So if you want to start painting watercolors, you probably want to keep that in mind, that those brushes will cost you. We're not gonna lie here. So yeah, that's essentially the difference, is how you use them and how you paint with them. What I'm using now, it's a Bold Mirror number 9 in round. This is 100% synthetic. I think this probably cost me between 3 and 5 quid. But yeah, more expensive brushes can run you even up to 20 quid per brush. So this is all about how much do you want to spend and on what do you want to spend it. So yeah, it's all about your technique and the materials that you use, but oils react better with natural fibers, so those are more expensive. And again, another reason why oils are more expensive is because you need more peripherals. So when it comes to acrylics, all you need is the acrylic, the brush, and whatever you're painting on. Whereas if you go for oils, you need the oils, but you also need the medium to deal with the oils, to thin it out, which in my case is Dutch varnish. And you need the cleaner, so I use turpentine. But by the way, if you're painting in a small space and you want to do oils, or you're doing oils but the fucking smell of turpentine is driving you crazy, Bob Ross, they do a lot of painting supplies, has an odorless solvent. It's really nice. When I was living in a smaller accommodation earlier this year, I used it and it's great. No one knew I was painting, which is not usually the case. I don't know if you've ever painted or something like that, but yeah, not a paint everyone as you're painting, because they can smell it a mile away. So yeah, that is my product recommendation for people who like oil painting but they don't like smelling like a car shop. Yeah. So what else was I going to talk about? Please keep the questions coming. You're making me very happy. I was going to talk about symbolism today, I believe. That is something that I said. So yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about my obsession with pomegranates, and what is this thing about obsessing over fruits And for me, the thing with fruits is that they are so tied up with like the idea of the original sin. I love that. I love the idea of introducing a little bit of a, you know, medieval or a Renaissance kind of like aspect to it. With, you know, in Western culture, we've been so obsessed with all the symbolisms for like the longest time, and I find that fucking hilarious. And I don't know if you know, but you know the whole thing with, you know, the Garden of Eden and God and the apple and shit. It was not an apple originally; it was a fig, and I love that because figs look like vaginas, and the vaginas are awesome. And yeah, that always makes me kind of giggle. The fact that, yeah, because you know apples come from the New World, which is America, America, like the continent, not the USA. Um, so we couldn't possibly have had apples before that. So it was fixed. The more you know. So yeah, I find that really hilarious and really fascinating, and that's why I like painting fruits so much. And pomegranates, of course, it goes back to Persephone and Hades and the seeds of the pomegranate. That has for years on end been my absolute favorite myth. And you know, I know that Persephone is kind of like a little bit of a dumb bitch, poor thing, but I really like that. And you know, I think that there is a lot to be said for possible reinterpretations where she has a little bit more agency, because you know, in the end, she managed to score a pretty cool marriage, and she has the ability to come and go. So I think that's pretty cool. I don't think she was as dumb as some people say she was. Yeah, that is my hot take on Greek mythology. We stand Persephone. Yeah, I mean, not cool about, you know, getting kidnapped and shit. Not ideal. I wouldn't recommend that as a courting technique. Please, you know, consent and stuff. But still, I think she made the best out of a potentially very shitty situation, and I think that needs some more recognition. Yeah, I'm painting the nose, and I always struggle with noses so much because I love noses. They are such interesting bits of human anatomy, but holy fuck, are they hard. Especially when you're painting, because if you're doing like a light study or a value study or whatever it is, it's so much easier. Oh my god, it's so much easier because it's like, it's all about the values. Oh, another tip: if you're starting out and realism is a thing that you want to do value studies. It's unbelievable how much you'll learn. That needs more gray. Or does it? Maybe it needs more blue. Yeah, so value studies are essentially when you're painting either in black and white or in green and white or in whatever and white. Or you can do any other color, but I would definitely recommend white because you're trying to do something neutral. You could do an underpainting as a value study. That is something that is a thing. That is something that is a thing. Of course, it's something that is a thing. But yeah, so that way you would have like an understudy of where you need to be placing the colors in your overpainting. So this is not a technique that would work a la prima because you couldn't possibly do an underpainting and then paint on top of it without the underpainting having dried. So in alla prima, it's more about exploration of the colors, and that's one of the reasons why I like alla prima so much, to be quite honest. But yeah, if you want to like achieve any degree of realism, I cannot recommend value studies enough because they will teach you a lot about the shapes and shit. Yeah, sorry, I was talking about pomegranates, wasn't I? Yeah, so pomegranates. For me, pomegranates are this kind of like very sexy fruit because, bear with me. What is this nose? What are we doing here? That's slightly better. Not very fantastic, but we can cope with that. Yeah, like I was saying, pomegranates. They are this very kind of like sexy fruit to me because they look as if they are kind of like full of jewels. And I think that's awesome. And that's why I love pomegranates so much. because they look like they are full of like rubies and jewels. So yeah. I don't know if you can see, just kind of like to let you know a little bit more about my technique, if you can call it that. But essentially what I kind of try and do is since we're painting a la prima, one of the things with a la prima that I think you should kind of like try and take advantage of is that you're constantly mixing with what's underneath of you, which for me is kind of like one of the best ways to paint the skin, because you can, oh my god, you can do so much here. So do you know in the beginning that I was kind of like laying down some tones for the skin? Well, the reason why I was doing that is because I knew that later on, I was going to be mixing into them, and I was going to be kind of like, it's almost as if you were creating a mass of paint with a paint underneath, and I think that's like really fucking interesting when it comes to painting and creating skin tones. I have absolutely no tips for painting skin tones other than white, because I'm white and I do a lot of self-portraiture, and it's been on my to-do list to learn how to paint other skin tones that are not white for fucking ever, and I never get around to do that. So yeah, I would really like to try and do that this year. Here's hoping that we will get there. Yeah, I'm gonna do a little bit of the neck, and I want to get them. I want to finish the mouth before we end the stream today, which I think we should be ending in about 10 to 15 minutes. I was hoping that I was going to be able to do this whole painting today in an hour. Am I crazy or what? I had absolutely forgot that today I had planned a painting that was more complex than the last one, which I don't know if you can see it. Am I showing you? Yes? No? Maybe. This is what I did last weekend in about an hour and a half. And I was kidding myself, clearly, and in thinking that this was something that we were going to be able to complete today, but, you know, set yourself unreasonable goals. But yeah, we can continue painting this next weekend, or maybe I will just record and kind of like finish it off live. Is that a thing? I will not broadcast the finishing. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. So yeah, I'm kind of like placing some more grays and some more stuff, and I think I'm gonna kind of like, yeah, this needs a little bit more. You see, the problem with having a palette that's kind of like dirty, so what I do is when I'm painting a series of paintings, or when I'm working on the same painting for more than one day or whatever, what I will do is I leave the palette wrapped up in foil paper so that I can still use the rest of the oils, so that I don't waste them, because I'm a very cheap painter. This will surprise no one in this stream, but you know, and I don't like wasting oil. Oil paints, you know, environmentally speaking, are not great. So that's one of the reasons why I don't want to waste them, and also they're very expensive, and yeah, I'm not rich, so there's that. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to finish the nose, or leave the nose at a place where I'm kind of like happy with. Clearly not happening. Yeah, we need something else. Let's see. Right now I'm trying to make sure that the nose hole, no, how do you call the nose hole? I'm sure it has a better name than nose hole. I know that this is nostril, but how do you call the nose hole? I'm gonna have to Google that later. Now I will not be able to sleep until I know how it's called. It needs a little bit more dimension, so that's what I'm kind of like trying to do. And another thing is that sometimes you need to introduce new colors. My watch keeps telling me to move, and it's like, bitch, this is the weekend, leave me alone. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm going directly for gray paint gray, painful gray, and I'm going to mix it with a little bit of ultramarine blue to kind of like give myself an edge. And kind of like, you see that now that's much more dark than the rest, right? I don't know if you can see that, but it is, you have to trust me. So when you introduce a new color, it is, especially darker colors, it is really gonna make things pop. So that's like something when you're painting in 3D, or when you're like trying to achieve something that's kind of realistic. I think it's very important to remember that instead of going for very harsh lines, you should try and build your darker colors, and just don't be afraid to use them, which is something that I'm very often guilty of, being afraid of using darker colors. And don't, just go for it. I'm essentially kind of like fumbling around here because I'm not quite happy with the I think it's because this needs to be gray. And it also needs a little bit more. Sometimes it's really hard when you're working from a picture reference, because there is only so much that you're going to have to make some executive decisions every once in a while, you know? You don't sorry, I didn't mean for you to have to put up with my cleavage. My webcam decided to stop working, so I had to kind of like, yeah, I'll show you the setup here later, because it's literally being held together by tape. So I'm actually very surprised that none of this has fallen yet. Haha, famous last words. So yes, I was saying, be bold with your painting choices. You can always paint over it. That's what's the worst that can happen. Says she, as she continuously freaks out and refuses to actually paint the things that she has to paint. Yeah, I promise I'm gonna stop fumbling with the nose in a minute now. Because that is not right. See, this is another thing that happens when you're painting. You will very often get kind of like hung up on a particular spot that no one will ever see again, because people are not going to be paying attention to whether the nose is perfect or not. They're going to be paying attention to how the painting works in general. So a la prima, and actually these streams are great for me because I can't stay fumbling around one little detail forever. It's why one of the reasons why I started painting a la prima. The other one being that I don't have a lot of free time, so this allows me to paint whilst not wasting a lot of time. You know what I mean. So yeah, that is the other reason why. But yeah, if you find yourself often fumbling about and kind of like trying to get one little detail perfect, paint a la prima or set a timer for yourself. If you haven't solved it in the allocated time, well, fuck it. That's how it's gonna go. I don't recommend that you do this for commissions or for like really important work. Really important, what's really important anyway. But yeah, I don't recommend that you do this for working for clients, for example. I think that, you know, your clients deserve you to fumble about probably. But if you're trying to get better, or if you're trying to get started in your, if you're at a point with your painting where you feel like, oh, I'm super stuck in my painting, I don't know what I'm doing, I sit down and I paint for hours and then I zoom out, especially if this is true if you're working in digital. I zoom out and all of a sudden I actually haven't painted shit. Just, yeah, set a timer, and if you haven't solved it by the end of that timer, then it's not getting solved, and that is done. And remember, like we said before, it doesn't have to be perfect, and B, you don't have to share it with anyone. This is kind of like your painting journey. You choose who you share it with. As you can see, I'm kind of like very, very quickly try to get the mouth kind of like sorted before the stream is over, because I wanted to keep this stream for, you know, to around an hour, especially because I think that if you're watching this afterwards, hearing me kind of like mumble about for more than an hour is probably more than what anyone should be subjected to. So, yeah. One of the reasons why I'm kind of like going for bolder colors is because this is a surrealist painting. So I'm kind of like giving myself permission to be a little bit bolder, if you know what I mean. And the other reason could potentially be that I just want to be done with this phase. Who knows? But yeah, I think that surrealism and other kind of like languages, especially if you're like me, can sort of in a way stuck on making things look a certain way or look photorealistic, which I don't think it's necessarily a great way to go about making art, says she while she's using a picture as a reference and painstakingly reproducing it. Yeah, like I said, give yourself permission to be a little freer. Give yourself permission to not copy the photograph literally. I think that is one of the best things that you can do for yourself as an artist. Especially if you're someone who's either starting out or is struggling with like self-perception problems. Just give yourself, cut yourself some fucking slack, is what I'm saying. And also because there is a certain beauty when you're solving things very quickly and kind of like analyzing things very quickly. Excellent. Which is the kind of like the beauty of a very fresh and a very not worked or unworked or underworked, or I don't know what the word for that is. Brush stroke, so to speak. Oh, I'm happy that I'm keeping you entertained. Hopefully. So yeah, what was I saying? I'm sorry, compliments make me lose the thread of what I was saying. Yeah, so yeah, freshness, strokes, things. Strokes not as in I'm having a stroke. Strokes as in no, you know, your brush strokes. So like I was saying, when you stop kind of like focusing on the little tiny detail and you go for like the bigger picture, there is so much that you can see. So, you know, the mouth, for example, now I can see that I can absolutely go in the nose again, which has been obsessing me. And this is another thing. Give yourself some space. If you find that you're working on a problem area, or an area that's not like making you happy or whatever, go work somewhere else and then you can come back. Because now I can see that I can afford to probably be bolder here. And that I want a little blue in that nose. Which is something that I was rummaging about before, but I was like, nah, don't do that, you're gonna fuck it up. Walking away for a little bit from an area that it's giving you trouble, I think it's one of the best ways to come back to that situation refreshed and kind of like with the ability to deal with it. So yeah, do that. Come back refreshed. It's, I find it really, really helpful, which is why, you know, setting timers, forcing yourself to work on other areas of the painting a la prima, all these things for me, they all stem back from kind of like this idea that I need little tricks to help me deal with my anxieties when it comes to painting. They are all kind of like the little tips and tricks I use to give myself permission to make mistakes and to not be perfect, which I think it's super important when it comes to being an artist, because and this goes back to the beginning of the stream, it's so hard to be okay with what you're painting. It's so hard to not hate every bit of what you're painting, especially whilst you're painting it. I think, you know, I'm sure there are artists out there who feel great about all their art and shit. I'm not one of those. I'm not sure I will ever be. I wish. That's why I pay so much for my therapy. But yeah, I am not sure I'm ever going to be great at that ever. So just relax and enjoy the process. And yes, Bob Ross, I think, besides the fact that he actually stole the whole concept from his kind of like mentor, I think it's like the idea of just getting people to paint. I think that is amazing. And I think he did a great job at making art accessible to people. I think that was a great I think that was his like greatest contribution to humanity probably, is having made art accessible and kind of like having convinced people that they can paint. Yeah, I love Bob Ross. I truly hope he never did anything outrageous or raped people, or because I really like him. But of course, if he did any of those things, well, we live in this world in which it's so hard to have male heroes. But yeah, like I think painting is for everyone. Artistic expression is for everyone. It's life is so hard, and capitalism is so shitty, and the world is so on fire. Paint if it makes you happy. If you're not, paint anyway. And I think that was kind of like Bob Ross's great gift to humanity, convincing us that we were actually entitled to paint. So yeah. And I also find his voice ridiculously soothing. So that is another thing. I think I'm gonna leave the face as is, as she goes into yet again, do a little retouch. And I'm going to very quickly move on to the hand maybe and see if in the next 10 minutes we can solve part of that. So yeah, that's what we're doing now. Yeah, Bob Ross, love Bob Ross. I find his voice really, really soothing. I don't know if you've seen that episode I think it was recorded right after his wife died of cancer. And there's this bit when he says that, sometimes there's a cloud or something like that. But eventually it will pass, and like sometimes things are not great. And the idea of the happy little accident, oh my god, that is so true in art and in life. One of the things that I absolutely love about painting analogically, so not digitally, is the possibility of accidents. And I know this sounds very stupid, but hear me out. When you're in a digital environment, and don't get me wrong, I love my iPad, I love Procreate. The technology is getting to a point where they are really, really starting to get the hang of reproducing this kind of like randomness of how certain materials work. But that is not something that... Oh, that's too yellow. Oopsie. We're still gonna put it there. Shall we? Yeah, why not? So yeah, when you're painting and it's not digital, it's traditional, it's analogic, let's say, there is so much that the texture, the application, the happy accidents, little things that happen, so much that's going to do for your work. And sorry, I'm gonna have to stop here. Yeah, I think I wasn't expecting my food to arrive this quick. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for being here today. We will continue talking about Bob Ross next day. And again, thanks so much for coming. I hope you enjoyed this. Bye.